Welcome to FBB Forum. My name is David, and I appreciate you for tuning in. If you like this content, please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow the FBB Forum Instagram and YouTube page. And the links are listed below in the comments. I'm very pleased to welcome the amazing IFBB women's physique athlete and 2023 Olympian, Romana Skotzen. Is that the right way to pronounce your last name?
Yes.
Okay, good. Back to the podcast. Romana has competed at the Atlanta and Chicago Pro shows this year and placed fifth in both shows against very stacked lineups. And then in 2023, Romana won the Empro Pro show in Spain and qualified for her first Olympia in Orlando. And Romana also hosts a really cool podcast on female bodybuilding with another great IFBB pro, Sara Bradley. And then is it Sarah Walker is the other Sarah?
Okay.
What was
Sarah
the name?
Parker.
Oh, Parker. Oh, that's
Parker.
right. Yes. So
Yeah. She Sarah actually hosts it, and me and Sara just sit there and answer her questions. She's a wicked host. She's really, really good.
I need to still watch some of it now that you had pointed me to the new podcast location, so I got to listen in. Um, but stay tuned to find out where Romana is competing next. And thank you, Romana. It's really great to have you here.
Very well. Pleasure to be had, to be honest. It's I always love doing these sorts of interviews. It's really cool to just like chat about it and stuff like that. So yeah, more than happy.
Thank you. Yeah, and since you have a podcast, you're used to being the interviewer sometimes, so it's kind of cool to be the interviewee, I think.
Yeah. Nice. It makes a nice change.
So our connection is a little bit spotty here. Let me see. I'll go
It's
ahead.
my fault being in the middle of nowhere in the UK.
Oh no, it's okay. No problem. Now, in terms of getting started in bodybuilding, I was wondering if you had an athletic or a sports background before you started competing in bodybuilding.
So yeah, I mean, I've always been sporty, as it were. Used to my athletics was my thing, 100-meter sprinting.
Okay.
So I used to do that in school. Used to go swimming with my dad. Used to play a lot of field hockey, so not ice hockey. We just have field hockey over here. So I used to do that a lot. And then at 14, my dad took me to the gym, and I got of it through college. And it probably wasn't until 2011 that I started training quite a lot, but it was CrossFit. So I did 12 years of CrossFit,
Wow.
and I started bodybuilding because I had 7 hands. Was trying to de-stone an avocado, just put the knife right through my hand. So I couldn't CrossFit because of ripping, pull-ups, all that. And I was training at a little independent gym on the south coast of the UK called South Coast Powers. And
Okay.
one of the PTs there was like, "Have you ever thought of doing bodybuilding?" I was like, "No, it's not for me. Too much sequins, too much tan. No." And then when I injured my hand, I was like, I was off work for about 6 to 8 weeks and needed something to occupy my time. So I said to her, I was like, "Right, let's do it." So 12-week prep, and I stepped on stage with a small foundation in the UK and just fell in love with it. And that was in 2018. And I carried on crossfitting, bodybuilding for another 2 years until sort of lockdown happened, and then knocked it on the head and just focused on bodybuilding. And that was when I turned pro in figure. So it's, yeah, I've always done something sporty, something training wise.
That's terrific. Yeah, you've really looked great up on stage, and I think you've definitely made a statement that you belong on the bodybuilding stage for sure.
I'm a much better bodybuilder than I ever was a CrossFitter.
Uh-huh. Sure, I understand. I've talked to other cross or bodybuilders or CrossFitters turned bodybuilders that say the same thing. And yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of, I was curious who convinced you to do your first contest in bodybuilding.
She's a wellness pro. Her name's Brittany Soriano. And yeah, she's Canadian, but she's been living in the UK for quite a long time. Her husband's English, and it was her and the owner of the gym, a chap called Marty Rice. He's an amateur, but he's going to compete very soon in the NPC stage, and he looks very good. So they were like my big influences, and I had no idea of anybody in the bodybuilding world kind of that was huge in the body. Literally, I was just like, yeah, I'll give it a whirl. I
Very
had no
cool.
idea what I was doing, no idea how to pose. No, I didn't even know that until the day of the show that I needed to do a routine. So I just stood in the middle of the stage, did my quarters, and walked off. My posing was horrendous.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just utterly clueless, but utterly loved it. And that's kind of the idea of a first show, isn't it? To find out whether you even like the process of prep and being on stage. And I just fell in love with it. The rest is kind of history a little bit.
And when was your first figure show?
So my first NPC figure show was an amateur Olympia in 2019.
Okay.
So I did a couple of smaller federations in the UK, and then I tried the amateur Olympia. There was only two in my height class, and I didn't. I was quite under-muscled back then. Typical CrossFitter though, I was all delts and back no legs even
Oh, I
then.
see.
So yeah, I did the amateur Olympia, and then Brittany was also my first coach for the first 18 months. And after the amateur, like, right, actually really serious in this now. And had to kind of have that hard conversation with her. She'd admit it herself. She's sort of more a bikini wellness type coach rather than the more muscular female categories.
Okay.
So it's kind of she was thinking it, I was thinking it. I was getting a bit too muscled for her ability. So I transitioned to a different coach that I then turned pro with, and debuted with, and then I changed after my figure debut to a different coach and went for the WPD route.
Terrific. That's great. Yeah, I think you look amazing on stage, and your posing is really good too.
Thank
Um,
you.
oh, you're welcome. I was curious if
Majority self-taught, to be honest.
say that again.
Most of my posing's been, well, especially my WPD posing's been self-taught.
Oh, really?
Figure and to
Oh,
like Sid for posing and Rhea Gale, but with WPD, it's quite hard to find somebody to help pose. I went to Donna Murphy for a little while, but then she sort of stopped doing it from what I can gather. And the rest of it, I just figured out between myself, my partner, and YouTube and Instagram, really. But I've with it's like that's my passion. It's more so than training sometimes.
that's terrific. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think posing with women's physique can be kind of challenging sometimes, and but it's so much, there's so much more creativity, and you get to pick your music and stuff. I really
Yeah,
like it. I think it's really graceful, and yeah, and you, yeah, I think you do stand out on stage with your posing.
thank you. It's I love to have a song that means something to me and that I can convey emotion whilst I'm posing rather than just doing a selection of poses to the music. I want it to actually look like a form of art type. I don't know if I've hit it yet, but I'm trying. I'm working on it.
Oh, I know. I think it's great. Yeah, I agree with you on the song choice too. I think that's important to kind of feel the music that way. Um,
Yeah.
Now, I was curious if you have a bodybuilding or fitness role model that you look up to.
Building career. Oh,
Oh, sorry, I just paused it. It's
changed over the course. Is it still playing up for this?
yeah, it's just kind of going
See if
slow.
that
I
works.
almost wondered. I don't. Oh, hold on, I'm gonna pause it real quick.
My sort of fitness role models kind of evolved over my bodybuilding career so far. Initially, it was obviously figure competitors.
Okay,
Classically, Sid Gillian. Rhea Gale was somebody I looked up to massively as well because she was from the UK and doing so well. Yeah. And then as I've kind of moved into the WPD realm, it was, people like Sarah, Natalia, that now my biggest sort of fangirl moment is it's got to be Angie Eo. She's amazing. Just yeah, I think it's a little bit alternative, so I can see that in myself. You know, I've got the tattoos, I've got the piercings. She's got her hair. Yeah, it's just, and her physique is phenomenal. I was lucky enough to meet her last year at the Olympia. Like I saw her backstage and she had this amazing leopard print kimono on. And I was like, not the time to actually ask her for a photo. And I was gutted. But then we both were at the stage getting coffee out of the expo. So we were able to have a bit of a chat and get a photo, and that was amazing. So her posing as well, the way she kind of just comes up with these new poses, I find that a massive inspiration. Trying to think of something that nobody's done before.
That's great. Yeah, Angie is amazing. And I got to meet her at the Olympia last year too. And yeah, and I was really pleased that she won Rising Phoenix because that was a big upset and
Yeah,
quite a big deal, for her to unseat Andrea there, and but she deserved it.
yeah,
Angie really looked great.
she did. She did. They all looked great, but Angie just had the edge. Be interesting coming what happens.
I know. Yeah, I'm really curious. I'm going to be going to the Olympia in Vegas too, and I'm very excited to see and
Oh,
cover it
exciting.
for the podcast. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
Now I was curious, was it tough for you to get up on stage in a bikini for your first bodybuilding show? Was it kind of nerve-wracking for you? And do you get nervous these days getting on stage?
Rem- it's get nervous about being on stage. A bit like, oh my God, am I going to remember my and when I start getting in my head whether I remember being, other times when I forgot my being. So I try and talk to myself positively. But I love being on. Um, I'm not sure how aware listeners or yourself are, but I had a massive problem with PTSD and anxiety from the ambulance service.
Yeah.
And the only time I was free of anxiety was when I was posing. It occupied my mind and it took those ruminating thoughts, the worry, it just took it away. And I was off work sick with my PTSD symptoms when I'm Empro. I have to kind of justify that to myself, like I'm off sick from my job. I'm in a different country. And work were aware, they knew what was going on. But it is quite hard to kind of, I can't do that at the moment, but I can do this. And I mean, to put it in context, at Empro, I was a wreck. Just couldn't speak to anybody, couldn't go anywhere without my partner. But the minute I was on stage, it all melted away and I could be in the moment. Um, so I don't anymore. I get more nervous probably the days before, but nerves have gone by then, and it's like the fun part. This is what I've worked so hard to do. And just chatting with them backstage and then being able to perform my routine, yeah, it kind of just melts away.
Hmm, that's terrific. That's really cool. That so it is kind of like a therapy kind of thing to be up on stage, it sounds like. And I think it's cool too, because it's culmination of all that hard work. And of course get show off to the audience and you have people rooting for you. So I bet, yeah, I understand that. That definitely makes sense to me.
There was more at Cargo than I think because it was a smaller venue. Part of my return to the back, and I pull back into a lat spread, and I could actually hear people responding to that, and that was such an amazing feeling. It was yeah, that was brilliant.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. Your last spread is amazing. Actually, your back is crazy good. Oh, that's terrific.
Back that CrossFit belt.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, you built the foundation with CrossFit for sure. Um, Now, so like we talked about, you won the Empro in Spain last year and went to your first Olympia, that was very exciting. But what was your experience like at Spain and Orlando last year for those two shows?
By the time I got to the Olympia, when I got back from Empro, I started some treatment for my PTSD. It
Okay.
was kind of in my head, I needed to be on prep to, I'd had counseling whilst I was on prep, but it didn't really work. So I got back from Empro and I had something called rewind therapy, which is meant to really help treat the PTSD. And it did really work. So by the time I got to the Olympia, some of the acute symptoms had subsided, but I'd been dieting since January and I was just knackered. And when I started prep for the year, I also started a new job as a disability assessor in the UK.
Hmm.
So I was, because my background is I'm a paramedic by qualification, by profession.
Okay.
So I transferred that over to disability assessing, and the course was Monday to Friday, 5:30. So I was getting up at 4 a.m. or normally waking up before that, to be honest. My sleep went from about 9 weeks out from the O. I was waking up at like 1, 2, 3 a.m. every morning, and that was me until I went to bed. So yeah, it was tough. And by the time I got to the Olympia, I was just really tired. And to put it in perspective, my weekdays looked like, yeah, in the gym for 3 a.m., steps, fasting session after, and or a block of my cardio. I then quick shower, set up my laptop. Luckily, it was all remote, so I could do it. I didn't have the travel from the gym. Set up do my first bit of work. We'd have our lunch break at 12:30. I'd be back in the gym, more steps, block of cardio, afternoon stint. After I finished work, finish off my steps, finish off my cardio, practice my meal prep, and that was 7 weeks of the Olympia prep. I think I went down to 3 days a week from about 3 weeks out from the O.
Okay.
But it was still doing these disabilities. You're on the phone for like, can't drink, you can't go to the, you can't eat. It's really, really tough. I was so tired backstage, Olympia. Dan, my partner, who was also my coach, he texted me what to do backstage to the phone for his instructions. And it was just an utter blur, which is really sad because it's you've pinnacle by qualifying, by winning it. You've got this amazing experience, and I didn't feel like I really enjoy it. So I definitely want to get back there, so be able to actually be in the moment and enjoy the process of being at the Olympia because it was just such a whirlwind, if I'm honest.
Yes, I understand that. No, I bet that does sound like a tough schedule, and yeah, just the jet lag alone would be tough, to come over for 5 hour difference from UK to the US too. Or no, actually more than that. It would have been 8 hour difference, I think. So yeah. So I know that yeah.
Luckily, I-
Oh, wait a
luckily,
minute.
my
No, you were in
20-year
Orlando.
experience in shift work, yeah, when you do night shifts, jet lag doesn't really affect you quite so, or I don't find it affects me quite so badly because
Yeah.
I've been used to for the last since 2005
Oh yeah.
changing my body clock from night shifts to day shifts. My
Yeah.
partner jet lag far more than I did. I was just tired anyway, so it was just sleep wasn't really a thing during the Olympia prep. It eluded me sadly.
Oh, I totally understand that, man. That's tough. I know. Yikes. Oh yeah, yeah. Now, what was your experience like this year at Atlanta and Chicago? And did you enjoy visiting USA? And I think you were here in USA for a few months, weren't you? Or a few weeks at least.
3 weeks.
Hmm.
3 weeks. So I loved Atlanta as a city. It was beautiful. It's so bad. You do all this traveling and there's all this amazing food, but you can't. But we did get a chance to explore some of the city, which was great on the carb up days. Atlanta, the show, the only issue I had was it was quite hot on show day. It was like I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but it was about 38 degrees Celsius, which
Yeah.
is very hot for somebody from the UK. Um, and the problem I had with Atlanta was with the heat. Um, that's when I ended up injuring abdominal muscles around opposing. My back started hurting, Next thing, I've got a long-standing back problem anyway. The next thing I know, I couldn't feel my midsection. I can normal vacuum really well, but I couldn't do that. I couldn't crunch on my ass. I had no idea what my midsection was doing. So that
Wow.
was a bit of a head, like played with my head a bit. Um, and we the night before and then sold a little bit, unfortunately. We came in a lot for cargo. I have never been so lean all my life. I was just, I remember being backstage and I felt my glutes at a point and I'm like, is that even, and looking at the photos, I'm like, is that me? Because
Wow.
it was just being able to prep a body that wasn't fatigued to start off with and from because I'm just full-time bodybuilding. I don't work. I do my coaching and my pay, but I'm not doing paramedic work anymore, and it's a game changer. Like the level of stress I was under was so much lower. My sleep was a lot better this prep. It was just a lot smoother to off with. And the show days, yeah, even with the pain, I was in a lot of pain for Chicago. Had to adjust my posing to this. Like we were chatting back and forth, weren't we? We were meant to do this podcast after Chicago, but I was just in so much pain. I couldn't concentrate.
Yeah.
Um, and there was one part. It was he was getting his thumb into my iliac, trying to relieve the tension of my abdominals. And I can't describe how uncomfortable that feels when someone's got their thumb inside your pelvis.
Yeah.
It's yeah. But even with all of that, Chicago, hats off to the crew at Chicago. The way the show was run, they were literally like half an hour till stage, 20 minutes till stage time, 10 minutes, line up, you've got 5 minutes. And they were so slick with it all. It was brilliant. Good. And you know, both Jake Wood was there watching, you had Linda Murray there. It was pretty wicked. I really enjoyed those, despite being in pain.
Oh yeah, no, I totally understand that. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, Tim Gardner does the Chicago show and Linda Murray does Atlanta, and I think they're both really good in terms of being promoters and being good to the athletes, I think. So I'm glad you enjoyed the time, except for the pain.
It was the only thing about Chicago is I walked into athlete registration and Jack Sullivan was kind of greeting athletes as they came in. And the first thing he said to me was women's bodybuilding's over there. And I was like, oh.
Ah,
I was like,
so
I'm women's physique. He was like, oh, okay, that's that. And then even the woman behind the registration table for women's bodybuilding was like, we're over here, women's bodybuilding's here. I'm like, I'm women's physique. So I think that's kind of tell of what I might be doing next a little bit.
oh, I see. That's very cool. That was my next question is like, where do you hope to compete next? I know you had talked about before we started recording, maybe doing or wanting to do women's bodybuilding at the Europa, which is in London this upcoming weekend, but you weren't you had change of plans on that.
So I had a week off plan when we were in Chicago, and the plan was get back to the UK. I'm weird. I have to start a diet on a Monday. I can't start it. So we landed on the Friday, utterly knackered from traveling. Had Saturday and Sunday where it was just like, right, kind of back on plan, but if I was max, I was having it. Monday came strict on plan, back into the gym, back cardio, things. And it became apparent that what was going with me with my abs wasn't going to be a quick fix.
Okay.
I went and saw my friend that I mentioned earlier, Brittany Soriano, as deep massage. So I went to visit her, some treatment, and it wasn't going to be. So we made the sadly the plan was to debut in women's bodybuilding at the K show. You know, it made sense. It's like an app from us. The cost is so because you have all the travel. It would literally just hotel. But my coach, pointed out that I'm not going to look good as I did at. I'm going to be tired. Am I even going to be able to present myself how I want to? So we made the decision that actually let's full time on prep, go into off season, my niggles, my injuries sorted during the season. And then the plan is next year, I'm still going to do WPD. I'll probably do a European WPD show and then an American women's building. That's the plan. To which shows I go for, that will kind of depend on the schedule when it comes out. But we're thinking we'll probably push the shows a bit closer to the Olympia, obviously hoping for that qualification. So potentially, we've got I'm not kidding myself that I would get shortlisted for Rising Phoenix, but I'll stick my hat in the ring. What's the worst thing going to happen? They say no. I can still prep for it and potentially do a WPD instead. And then whilst we're out there, depending on what other shows are around, either a women's bodybuilding before or after that. And then it would hopefully they'll have a UK show next year, that we'd potentially do show that's normally around September time. And there's also doing women's bodybuilding in Romania and coach Romania this weekend. And he said the show was really well run, really good productions. Quite keen to do that. So that's kind of what we're spitballing at the moment, but we won't make a decision for sure until the calendar's out and we've got a bit more off-season progression under our belt.
Sure, I understand. That sounds like a good plan though. And maybe, try doing both divisions next year. And are you doing that to kind of see where the judges place you or where you feel like you most belong?
Yeah, basically. It seems to be that judging is moving away from the absolute dice look that they were last year in WPD and going for that. I don't know if they're trying to make a distinction between bodybuilding and women's physique. I'm unsure at the moment. But because I personally won't step on stage anything other than in tip top condition, that's just what so willing to compromise condition for WPD. I will step on stage still conditioned and we'll just see what is decide. It's unfortunate. I've tried to get back from Atlanta and Chicago and haven't had a reply yet. So we're a little bit lost in the direction. So we figure out this way we can sort of satisfy both by trying to figure it out as we go. It will either pay off or it won't. You know, we won't. There's nothing to lose from doing it, basically.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a good plan too. And I wish you the best for next year. Um, now,
Hmm.
I was curious, is there any advice that you can provide to ladies who are seeking to earn their pro card? And I know it takes a lot of hard work and dedication, but any special advice that you could provide to folks listening in?
I think, keep persevering. It must happen the first time because it is so dependent on what the job are looking for and who to up. You just do a first attempt, but you also have to be realistic. You do hear a lot of bodybuilders, both male and female, I'm going to turn pro, I'm going to turn pro. And then ultimately it comes to their first show, they don't get the placing, they don't play they would like to. It takes time. I was very lucky in the fact that I had a long history of training behind me
Mhm.
when I started bodybuilding. So I had quite a decent amount of muscle mass and I turned pro in figure, which obviously is a slight less category anyway. But you just have to keep going. You can't be a bodybuilder for the wins. You've got to be a bodybuilder because you love competing, you love prep, you love off season. And I actually got asked by somebody a little while ago who didn't get the result they wanted in a show. How do you deal with not winning? And personally, I don't. Obviously, it's nice to win. We want to win, but ultimately, for me, it's stepping on stage, being better than I was last time. And I think for those that are wanting to turn pro, that's got to be your focus. Am I getting on stage better than the last time I was on stage? If the answer is yes, then you've already won. You can't control the judges, but you control what you present them. And you've got to tick all your boxes. Sleep needs to be right. Says she who doesn't sleep. Nutrition needs to be on point. Recovery needs to be on point. and then the rest will follow with time. But it's about perseverance, about where physique is at. You know, you need to look at the pro qualifiers. Where do I sit? Have I got the mass to contend with that? Have I got the condition to contend with that? If you keep going, it
I think we lost the sound here.
I think I'm just cursed when it comes to technology.
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah, yeah. It can be a pain sometimes. Um, now, in terms of having a prep coach, is Dan your partner? Is he your coach?
Yeah. I was with another coach up until Empro. There was some bits and bobs that I won't kind of, because I don't like to, everyone has their own experience with coaches. And my previous coach, there were bits and bobs that just weren't working out. And Dan is a very experienced bodybuilding coach. He hadn't worked with that females and not pro females, but we've been together by that point. What was it? Almost 2 years? No, almost a year. Um, we together taken over my training over a year before Empro. So he already had a good understanding of body, but it needed somebody to understand my mind better than my previous coach did. And Dan really does that. He's been the big rock through all the PTSD nastiness last year. And it just made me, it's like, why am I paying somebody externally to coach me? And right now have a fantastic, meticulous coach who knows me inside out. It just makes sense. And we had a lot of conversations before we made that decision about, would it affect our relationship? How would it work? Like we have our separate WhatsApp group, WhatsApp chat. We're just talking. Can you get me this from the shops? Can you dog out? Can you feed the dog? All that. And then we have our coaching chat, which is literally when I'm checking, we always record my check videos, even though he's there. I want to capture that data. And my weight goes on the check-in chat. Any changes go on the check-in chat, and we just keep it very separate from our relationship. And it works really well for us. He will listen to me and what I'm telling him, and I'll listen to him. So feedback, like when you're under recovered on prep and it's like, no, I really need a rest, all the signs are there, he'll listen to me. When we're talking about food sources and carb ups, and I know what obviously digests best for me, and he'll take that on board and listen to it. So the peak for Atlanta is very different from Chicago. We tried, we used the classic rice cakes, squares bars for Atlanta, and I ended up filling. So for Chicago, we literally set it out to peak me using what I would eat pre-workout, and
Okay.
that just did the job. An hour and a half before stage time, and it was spot on. A little bit of honey, little bit of salt, little bit of water backstage, and the living together. It doesn't need to be so yeah, Dan, I mean, I've grown so much over my training basically, and then again from when he took over coaching me completely. The look from Empro versus the Olympia, I put on more hamstring. I got a bit wider in my back, and then the 6 months off season that I had from Olympia, or just over 6 months to Atlanta, and I just put on so much more size. So it's just working really well.
That's terrific. That sounds like he's great to work with, and yeah, having him
Yeah.
right there and y'all are together. I think that's terrific that it's worked out so well. And yeah, I think that the results are evident on stage. I mean, you just look so good on stage, so that's terrific. Um, Now you mentioned earlier about posing. Did you say you don't have a posing coach, or do you?
No, I my coach is Instagram. I'm um I'm quite lucky that I'm very good at watching and copying. That's kind of how I learn.
Okay.
So I went to posing coaches and I didn't feel like eating more than I already knew. So
Okay.
and that's not bigging like myself. I've not got a big head about it. I know I'm not the best, but I'm still striving to get better. And I just feel like bodybuilding is so active that that's an avenue I can spend money on, and it seems to be working so far. And Dan's got quite a good eye, so he'll be like, "You need to adjust this a little bit as well." We kind of help each other with that respect.
That's terrific. That's really cool. Yeah. That's a good point too about Instagram can be your coach because you can observe what the other ladies are doing and tweak your routine based on some of these best posers and that are out there doing their thing. So yeah, that's good advice. I like that.
Um,
I was curious, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of prep for you?
Probably sleeping. Maintain. I don't sleep well anyway. Even like now in off season, I'm normally awake for between an hour and 90 minutes every night without fail. I'll work out. It's just one of those things from the shift work. I'll wake up and I'm like wide awake. I have to go and like watch some TV just to kind of chill out and relax again before I can go back to bed.
Hmm.
Um, in all honesty, I find off season far more challenging than prep. Give me a target, tell me to eat 3,000 plus calories a day, struggle. I don't have the
Wow.
best appetite.
Ooh, I understand. Yeah. I haven't heard that from other ladies though. So I understand though where you're coming from. But yeah. But is it the structure of the prep that helps you think?
Yeah, I think structure, and it is hard in off season as a female to get bigger.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable, nothing fits. You can't wear what I'd class as normal people clothes because nothing fits. You're literally rocking around in shorts and a baggy t-shirt the whole time. You don't feel so much like yourself. Comes
Yeah.
along, you're seeing those visible changes. Everyone equates weight loss to a positive change, so I think that helps the mindset a bit, and you get that positive feedback by seeing those changes. You know it's working.
Hmm.
And yeah, I love cardio.
Oh, you
I
do
love
really?
cardio. I'll just stick my iPad on, I'll watch Netflix, stick me on there for an hour, and I'm so yeah, in prep, once I get in the groove, it my biggest thing prep is just keep moving because it's momentum will carry you forward. It's when you stop and sit down and you've got to start moving again that's the problem. So I'll do about 20,000 steps a day when I'm on
Wow.
prep. Sit down.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a lot of
Try.
steps. Oh, you're cutting out a little bit.
My
That,
back.
oh yeah, I can hear you. It's interesting with cardio too, because I haven't heard too many ladies that say they like the cardio that much too. So
Yeah. I think it's all those years of CrossFit. It's another thing that just it relaxes my mind doing cardio. I don't have to think about anything. I can just watch crappy TV and I'm all good.
yeah, that's cool. Crappy TV. I like that. Yeah. That's very cool. I was curious, what advice can you give to ladies who are looking for a good coach? Like, what should they be looking for? What should they avoid?
Um, for females, obviously you've got the hormonal aspect of things. So personally, I would be very wary of saying that I'm with a coach that coaches predominantly, but it's different because he's my partner. He's got an vested interest in saying feminine, but I would say is coach why they're prescribing you a certain compound or a certain activity, and they don't really have an answer. That's a big for me. Um, if their answer is to just take more drugs, that's another big flag for me. Coaches that suggesting clients start thyroid support without actually getting any blood work done to turn out whether they need that thyroid support. Another, you've got to have a good rapport with your coach and a good level of trust. And it's kind of a gut feeling. Personally, I prefer somebody that you get a lot of coaches that it's my way or the highway. I prefer a bit more back and forth what my thoughts and my feelings are. Not, I don't mean like emotional feelings, but feelings in the body. Like I say, when you're under recovered, I need somebody that's going to listen to me, because otherwise I'm just going to dig a hole. So somebody that is empathetic and listening to you as well, I think is really important in a coach. And just, look at their clients that they've got already. Are they in the category that you want to compete in? If you're a WPD athlete looking for a new coach, probably not the idea to go with somebody that's coached predominantly bikini athletes.
Yeah.
It's a different approach. It's a different look. It's a different peak. It's a I've had a client come to me who was coached by a different coach. She mid prep, she wanted to come with me, and she was like, the biggest thing was my split was like a wellness split. It wasn't a WPD split. There was no chest and very little arms in there. There was 3 leg days a week when she's got fantastic legs already, and her upper was lacking a bit. So you need to kind of look at what your coaches do in reference to your category, and do you feel that that's if it's not, a red flag as well.
Hmm. That's really good advice. No, thank you for that. And yeah, and because you've had a few coaches, and so you have the experience with ones who
Yeah,
worked with in the past. So no, um,
yeah.
and now you have Dan as your partner too. So that's like do you, I don't know if that always works for everybody, sometimes it doesn't, I think,
I think it does necessarily.
yeah. I think you guys have a really good situation there though.
The other important thing when you're looking for is the price. Can you actually afford that coach? Because I don't know about the US, but some of the UK coaching prices are, because the bodybuilding is expensive. When you've budgeted, you've got your bikini, you've got your hair, you've got your makeup, you've got your tan, you've got your show entry, travel, Airbnbs, all that sort of stuff. You save for a show and pay a coach. Because yeah, it's all great having fancy coaches that look really flashy on Instagram, but if you're going to be on the breadline because you're paying your coach 400 quid a month, it's probably not the best one for you.
That's a good point. Yeah, it is, and it's expensive here too, for sure, I think. So, yeah,
Mm.
and which is, I understand why though, because of the services they're offering. It's kind of such a niche sport too. So finding somebody who can really help you, but yeah, no, I totally understand that. Now, I was curious how
Having
long.
trans from,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, transition from being a paramedic to an online coach myself. Now, it's basically 24/7. Of course, you go to sleep, but if a client messages you with a problem that's and they're on prep, and you would be switching your phone off, you still need to be able to reply to that client. So I'm getting a massive awakening about how to be able and that was the end of the day. Now it's all the time, but it's really cool to be doing that. Enjoy for one.
I understand. Yeah. How long have you had your coaching business now?
started I started posing coaching, I think, a little bit in 2022. Then I started with a few clients whilst I was still working as a disability assessor in 2020. And then when I left this year, I started, and especially now I'm off prep, I've started pushing both my posing and my coaching a little bit more. So it is getting busier, which is really exciting. So I'd say probably since April 24, I've been put all of it into it.
And do you have in-person clients too, or do you mostly work with online since you're kind of isolated where you are, sounds like?
Do both. I do both. So yeah, I've got the client that actually was here before we did this podcast. She like I said, she travelled like 90 minutes to get to an in person. I personally prefer in person because
Yeah.
I feel like the client gets more out of it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I do. It's a short answer.
Okay. Very cool. That's great. Yeah. Now I was curious, is now Dan certainly looks like a bodybuilder, but does he compete too? And if so, what division does he do? He looks like he's in great shape too.
Yeah, so he um like him that the only reason he's still an amateur is he hasn't actually stepped on an NPC stage yet to be able to even be in the realms of turning pro. It's not through a lack of muscle mass or a lack of condition or a lack of magnitude of his size. It's he's not been in the race to be able to even win it yet.
Sure.
So he was prepping for an NPC show at the beginning of the year, but he tore his hamstring.
Oh,
So he was about 6 weeks out and not prep on the head. Again, it wasn't going to heal quickly enough. And with my competition season, do have the agreement that we will never be on prep at the same time because one of us needs to have our head about us, especially when he's coaching me,
yeah.
and the travel and everything. So he had to pull prep because I'm starting prep, and I was obviously tied to the shows that are WD Pro, which as many as a super heavyweight amateur. So he will be going again next year at some point, probably at the beginning of the year before I start getting into prep, and hopefully get that because yeah, it's like
That's
285 pounds is his peak off season weight. So he's a pretty big guy.
wow, that's terrific. That's really cool. I think that's smart not to try to prep at the same time too. Y'all are smart that way. That you probably
We
save the
did prep
relationship that
in
way.
2023. In 2023, we did prep at the same time, but he wasn't coaching me. So that was different. That was okay.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. But now that he's coaching you, yeah, no, I understand that though. Hmm. I think I told you I think he looks like Andy Serkis, the actor. So I think y'all could
Yeah,
make money like going to the Comic Cons and he could be a buff Andy Serkis and dress up like some of the characters he's done. You can make money that way.
I, I don't think he's a very good Gollum. I think he's a bit too big.
Oh, I know. I was thinking maybe I was thinking like the Claw character from the Black Panther movies, maybe. That would work. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, we were going to go to on for one of our friends' stag days, but it just didn't work out. But he was going to go as
That's who?
Bane from Batman.
Oh, Bane. Oh, yeah, that would be perfect. Oh, yeah.
Mm.
He has a great physique for that for sure.
Yeah,
Oh, and
I didn't
that's
realize until we looked into it. There's a female Bane.
oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
she's got ginger hair that worked, but it ended up happening. It would have been fun.
I know, that's really
Maybe one
cool.
day.
I was thinking Bane was played by a British actor, Tom Hardy, too. So that's pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, where do you live or in England? Like, what part of England do you live in?
So it's a county, which probably doesn't mean much to you, but it's near Cambridge. So we're about 40 minutes from Cambridge.
Oh, okay, cool. That's your closest city.
Yes, technically there's another Ely, but it's very, very small
Oh, okay, well, yeah. Is
for
there
a
uh,
city.
is there a very supportive bodybuilding community in Cambridge or even, where you live? I know it's kind of isolated and rural where you live.
Not particularly, but I mean, we live on his parents' farmland. I say farmland. His parents run a motocross track, so
Oh,
it's very rural. And we've got our own private gym here, which is amazing.
nice.
Dan was a very odd 14-year-old and started collect gym kit when he was 4. So
Wow.
we've got he's constantly looking at new pieces to buy and that sort of thing. So I'm really lucky. I still go to a public gym. It's not really a bodybuilding gym. There are a few bodybuilders there, but mainly it's a powerlifting commercial gym. But I like to go there just for a mix up of the atmosphere. Like,
Okay,
especially if Dan's on a rest day, I'll choose to go and train there because the energy's different. Um, so yeah, we're quite lucky in that respect, but there's not the biggest bodybuilding community where we live. But
sure.
that's what show days are for. That's why we like going to shows to see people and watch bodybuilding.
That's great. Yeah, you said you're going to go as a spectator to the show this weekend in London.
Yeah. It's actually my birthday, so it's my birthday present from Dan. Is the show? It's
Nice. That's terrific. Yeah. That's going to be a good show too. It's a really good lineup. So that'll be great
yeah,
for you to be there.
yeah, it does.
And the fans will love to see you there too, I'm sure. So that'll be great. Um, I was curious that would you all consider moving to the USA to be closer to that kind of center of the bodybuilding world, since there's so many contests and the Olympia is usually based in the US?
It's very much the dream. It's just the affordability of it.
Mhm.
We don't have much overheads to pay. Um, we don't have rent. We've got a few bills, but that living on his parents' land is allowing us to do what we want to do competitively with the travel. It's not to say that if we were able to save, that wouldn't be something that we'd look to do in the future. We've talked about it. It's
Okay.
just having the finances behind us to be able to do it.
Yeah.
I've also, my parents are in their 70s, so I'm kind of a bit reluctant to leave the UK and be too far away from them,
Yeah. I understand.
because they're not getting any younger, for want of a better expression.
Yeah.
Yeah, one day would be absolutely amazing, but I just that day would be.
Sure. No, I totally understand that. Yeah, it'd be great if you could come though, but it sounds like you have such a good setup there in the UK too. I mean, it'd be hard to move all that equipment and move everything over. Have to get a ship or something to
To live
move all
gym
the
here, unfortunately, which I think Dad would be very upset about.
Yeah, I understand. Oh yeah, yeah. Um, I just have a few more questions for you. I was curious, how long have you had the bodybuilding podcast with Sara Bradley and now Sarah Parker? And I was curious if you've had a favorite person that you've interviewed through the years.
So it's actually Sarah Parker's podcast, and Sara Bradley, sorry, Sarah and Sarah gets a bit confusing
Oh,
sometimes. Sarah
sorry.
suggested that we get on the podcast together, and there is a big gap in the UK, and I think international about with bigger females do podcasts. So it was kind of trying to bridge the gap between, because Sarah Parker's a bikini competitor, myself and Sara Bradley are. So it was about creating a podcast that was relatable for female bodybuilders in general, whatever category. It has to be more towards the more popular categories. And it does an amazing job. We had probably my all-time favorite. We had Wendy McCready on our podcast.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, no, sorry, Wendy.
Hope you cut out on me.
So Wendy is guest.
Wendy McCready. Oh, I'm gonna pause real quick. Wendy McCready. Okay, cool. Oh, I know her. Yeah, she's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. So obviously she's retired now. Was thinking saying she was like one of the first UK females to turn pro, and
Yeah,
has a long. I think she's been bodybuilding long and been alive. Her wealth of experience and knowledge was really really cool to just be a part of that podcast. It was, yeah, that was a good one.
that's true. So the old WPD podcast, those videos are still available to watch, aren't they?
Yeah. So me, Sara Bradley, and we had two different people that would join us. What kind of happened was we started that in 2022, and then I went into prep, Sarah went into prep, and it just kind of fizzled out from there. Um, and then Sarah started doing the roundtables that we do, and actually seems to work a lot better than us doing our own thing. So
Okay.
we stuck with that, and I think we're going to be a review next week, because we did one after the race rumble NP show in the UK 10 days ago,
Okay.
and that got a really good amount of interest. So I think people really enjoy us talking about the shows. So hopefully we'll do another view of the Europa, both the amateurs and the pros. It's really nice to be able to back to those that support us on the bust.
That's terrific. And I'll include the links to both podcasts down below too in the comments. So if folks want to check them out. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's terrific though. And I've seen some of your old podcasts, but I need to look at the new ones. So I definitely will check that out too. So but y'all did a
yeah,
great
do it.
job. And Sara is really good. Do you know when she's going to compete again, or do y'all, or does she know?
We did have a brief chat about it when I saw her like the weekend just gone. It will be next year, but I kind of don't feel like my place to say what show she mentioned.
Sure.
No, that's for her to tell everybody. But I think her plan is to compete at some point next year.
That's terrific. She's really amazing. So yeah, I look forward to seeing her again.
Yeah.
She's got the crazy abs, man. Her abs are insane.
She does
I was curious, do you ever find it hard to keep up with the demands of social media, and do you have to deal with
all the time.
fans that are adoring, but also nasty trolls?
Um, I'm I'm quite good with social media. I don't Trolls don't really get to me. I'm not the best at posting. I need to get better. But it's always one of those things. I'll do it later and I forget. But I actually Valentine's Day post on Valentine's Day of me and Dad, and some very interesting comments on that. Lots of trolls. It had like 12,000 likes, which is unheard of for me, and lots of comments. But I don't know why it got picked up. Algorithm ducked it into the ether. Trolls. There was some very. She looks like a man. It's just two dudes. I went through a phase of like hiding the comments at one point, and I was like, "What? No, I'm gonna leave them there because all they're doing is embarrassing them." It's quite clear to your normal person that doesn't have a head full of nastiness and spiteful email. Yes, I've got a lot of muscle, but looking at that, it is very, very, very obvious that I'm female. So anyone that's she looks like a dude, they're just embarrassing themselves. So I kind of just left them there, and every now and then I try and put something with. But yeah, it just kind of got to let it wash over you, really.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. That's actually a good point about just leaving them up and embarrassing themselves. I think that's a good idea.
There's um there's a page called Irish Muscle Lover,
Oh yes, I know
which
him.
sounds
Yeah.
like it. Yeah, my goodness, he is so sharp tongued. I literally just tagged him in a few of those posts, and he just ripped them. Yeah, he's really good at showing trolls who's boss with that. Yeah, he's
I like that too. Yeah, I do like the way he does that. He's really good. Uh,
very
oh,
witty, and he's got the ability to shut somebody down without swearing or nailing, but just with his intellect, which, yeah, I appreciate. I like reading his comments.
I do too. Yeah, he is. He's really interesting, and yeah, he does have a sharp tongue. I like that too. Or sharp fingers because he's typing. Uh, One thing I was curious about, since you are European and in the UK, it seems like a lot of the Europeans who are competing in the NPC shows in Europe often find themselves without a pro card, even when they win the show due
Yeah,
to a lack of competitors. And I was thinking, what do you think is the cause of this, and how can we change it? How do you get more people to compete?
I think he they last year, I don't know if they've done it so much this year, they actually reduced the amount of shows that had the more muscular categories on, and
Okay.
there was a lot about that. But to me, it actually made sense because the less shows will turn up for the shows when they actually have WPD and women's on the spot. So I think that's one way that they can make sure that there's enough competitors. But I don't know what what the reservation is with the amount of competitors that turn up. I mean, obviously, if you are the only person on stage, you can always appeal to the IFBB for your pro card at pro qualifier. Anyway, email them with your photos and say, look, I was the only person. Is this physique worth of a pro card? But there's a lot of people maybe not knowing the degrees this for females, because bikini are the more popular and wellness are the more popular categories.
Yeah.
And I also don't know if it's just the length of time to get that on a female to be able to compete. There's a bit of a lag maybe, but it is quite sad to see these athletes just being on their own. Maybe it's difficult because do the promoters say we're going to be on a different show, but then that messes up the complete timeline. So I don't know. If you think you want to be WPD, give it a try. You're not going to lose anything. Just try it. You never know what's going to happen. And I think people go with because it's safe. There isn't the routine. Don't let the routine fool you. Worst case scenario, your routine, nobody's going to know. Yourself, your partner if they've watched it, your family if they've watched it, opposing coach. The judges aren't going to know. Going to know. Just make something up on the spot if you can. Just do your quarters, do something, and nobody will notice. So the route put you off. It's duality. Think of that way, rather than this big daunting thing that you have.
That's
Not
good.
enough the music. That's 20 seconds gone. It's 40 seconds.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, that's really good advice, I think. Yeah, the thing that surprises me is that sometimes you'll have a woman who will appeal to IFBB, for the pro card, and in my opinion, they look like they should get it, and then they get denied. So I don't know, it just feels like it would be discouraging for some of the athletes to, whereas if they were in
I
the US,
know.
they wouldn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, I know there was somebody I knew 2 years ago did a pro qualifier. There wasn't enough to award a pro card. She appealed to the IFBB, and their answer was, "There's another pro qualifier in 2 weeks' time." I get, I get that because I do think that if you're going to turn pro, it should be on a stage with a lineup.
Mhm.
Obviously, if again there's not enough competitors, IFBB should actually take some action. But yeah, if there's another pro qualifier, I do see the IFBB's point in just see what happens at the next pro qualifier.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. But yeah, it's just a shame that it is that way, I think, in Europe, and, hopefully get more competitors to show, but yeah, yeah. Um, well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up, but I was wondering if there's anything I missed that you'd like to address or anyone that you'd like to shout out.
I think biggest one is my bikini sponsor, Miss Bikini Fitness, because
Yeah.
she relentlessly year after year provides me with suits, and they are incredible. Literally years said, "I've got an idea. Are you happy? Let's do what I think." Yeah. So I haven't known what the bikinis are going to look like until they've rocked up on my doorstep through the post. And she just smashes it out the park every time. So Suze at Miss Bikini Fitness, you are a legend. Thank you. And also I think my blood work. So I work for them, so sponsored by them, Eval. So if you're in the UK and you're looking for blood work, check out Eval. Clinics all over the country, phlebotomists all over the country. You get Dave Crossland analysing your blood work results and giving you a summary and advice. So to me, it's the only go-to for blood work in the UK is Eval.
Terrific. Very cool. The bikini sponsor you mentioned, is she in the UK, or where is she located?
As well, and another sponsor I should shout out is it's an up and coming supplement company in the UK, Engineered Muscle. Riz and Dee, the owners, are just they support us athletes like no other sponsor I've had before, other than Sue with Miss Bikini Fitness. They're amazing, and they've got Frenchie as their logo, and I'm a massive French bulldog fan, so they batch test all their products, so what you're taking is exactly what it says, which
Okay.
obviously it can be a bit dodgy not knowing
Yeah.
exactly what's in the products, but they batch test everything, and they brought out a sleep product, and it seems to be the only thing that actually helps when I do sleep, get a restful sleep. So check out Engineered Muscle. Wicked. Sorry, swearing.
Oh,
I've got a potty mouth sometimes.
oh no, no, no problem at all. No, that's terrific. No, I appreciate that. And I'll make sure to include the sponsor links down below as well. Um, and if you want, if you're cool with it, turn on the camera real quick and see if we can get a quick flex.
Oh, I think I'll just switch.
Oh, I can see you.
Yeah. Okay.
That's awesome. I can see. Yeah, it looks
And
good.
it's not bad anymore.
Now you look terrific, Romana. Thank you. And
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for your time. Sorry about technical difficulties, but at least we got the audio, and
Thought
a
to
lot
be
of
fair.
people just end up listening to my podcast anyway, like while they're doing cardio or whatever. So that should work out fine.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been really cool to do.
Thank you, Romana, and I'll get this posted later today. So I'll tag you.
Oh, wicked. Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.